Hello, Gráinne. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, good, good. It's a great morning today. So I'm glad to have you here. Thank you for being part of this episode. So I know you're a coach, and this podcast is a lot about coaches and learning from the process of becoming a coach and learning from you guys. So can you tell me a little bit more about how you became a coach? I mean, you weren't born like this, right?
No, I wasn't born a coach, so that was a good observation. So I actually started my career in Ireland. That's where I'm originally from. And I started my career in medical marketing.
Hmm.
And I decided in my mid 20s that it would be a good move to London to progress my career. So I moved to London, and in 2013, then I was pregnant with my daughter. And when I had her, I was on maternity leave. My husband also works in the medical industry, and he was promoted to a position in Germany.
Hmm.
And at that stage, I thought it would be a good opportunity for me to take a few years off to be with my daughter, and we could move to Germany. So that's exactly what we did. So my husband took the promotion, we went to Germany, and I was a stay-at-home mum for about 4 years. So I stayed with my daughter, and then my son was born about 2 years after. And I mean, I had to start my whole life from scratch. It wasn't exactly the same as England in that when I moved to England, everybody spoke English. I had a career, so I had lots of people around me and lots of people to network with. In Germany was different. I was completely on my own. I didn't speak the language. I didn't know the culture. So it was a lot of research trying to find like English speaking mums until I got, the grasps with the language, and just trying to know. I'm a real people person, so I need people around me. I'm not one of these people can go without seeing people. The other thing was my husband traveled. He could have been away for say 5 weeks at a time.
Hmm.
So I definitely needed that interaction. And I fell upon this beautiful group of women who were all English speaking, but from many different parts of the world. So, like, there were some British, there were some Irish, but there was also Americans, Canadians, Indians, even people who had English as their second language. So, say Russians, people like that. Um, and I just realized that when I was in this group, despite all of our backgrounds and even our careers were so diverse in that, my one of my best friends, she was originally from India but had a PhD from NYU and was a world expert in Gandhi. I had a friend who was a nanny, who trained with Super Nanny. So there was such a diverse group, but yet we all had the same hang-ups when it came to having children. So we all were asking advice on feeding, on sleeping. Um, and what I really discovered was there seems to be no path between, being a career woman, going into being a mother, and then coming out again, back into being, both being a career woman and being a mum. And I really noticed there was a gap in what we believed our skills were and actually where they were. There was a massive gap between our own confidence. I decided I wanted to go back to work, but I also decided that I wanted a more purposeful job. I wanted to be helping people.
So your first job in the medical industry, what was it?
So I actually worked in various different departments. So I worked in diagnostics, which would be blood analyzers.
Mm,
But when I finished, I actually worked in diabetes. So it was like the handheld blood analyzers, the really tiny ones that you
right,
just,
right.
yeah. So that's what I was doing. And my job was basically to educate healthcare professionals as to why our analyzer was better than everybody else's. Our blood glucose monitor was better.
Mhm.
And yeah, and just help, be their support for the salespeople. It was a fabulous job, but it maybe wasn't as personable
Hmm.
as
So,
it could.
so did you ever, when you were a child, did you ever had like a dream job, or was there something that you're like, this type of job is not for me?
Yes, so actually, I did have two careers before all of this. I used to be a singer, and that was my whole life before, you know. before having children, I loved singing. I was a professional singer in Ireland as well. So I sang professionally for 10 years. And that was my dream. That was music. Was my entire life, like the whole way through school. I'm a viola player. I studied music in university, so that was actually my dream job. But it got to the point where before I left Ireland, I was singing 5 gigs every week. And I was working a full time, very full on job that involved a lot of travel. And I was absolutely exhausted. And I just had to decide, what am I going to do here? Do I go for the career, or do I go for the singing? I always know singing's going to be part of my life. So it was very easy decision for me to go, okay, I need to go into my career, knowing that like I'll be singing at bits and pieces, which I still do. I'm still singing at friends' weddings, or
Oh, okay.
I sing for my children. They don't enjoy me singing, but I do. They're my only audience.
Okay, so you did go into singing, and then you went into you said you had another career. What was the other career?
Sorry, that was my two careers. So medical marketing and
Oh,
singing
okay,
were
okay.
my two careers. Yeah.
All right. So after that, I mean, you already had your dream job as a singer.
Yeah.
Then you went into the medical, and then how do you jump into the next part? Well, you say you met a lot of people, women, especially, and you form a group. And what happened after that?
Well, I think naturally I've always been a cheerleader for other people. I think naturally I just see the best in people. I really believe in people, and I love seeing people do well in their lives. I've never been a very competitive person. I'm competitive in myself, but I'm
Mhm.
not competitive against other people. I have a real belief that we all have our strengths and weaknesses, and we all have a purpose. And that's something well before coaching, before I got into coaching. So I think for me, when I was meeting these women and realizing that they didn't have the confidence, I felt naturally I was coaching them.
Mhm.
And when I decided I wanted to go back to work, it's such a strange story. But I thought, what do I want to do? And the same day, a Netflix documentary came out about Tony Robbins. And I love Tony Robbins. I'm really into self development, always have been. And I started watching it. And just while I was watching it, I thought, oh my goodness, I could be a coach. And it was like a real, ding. And then at the same moment, this is even weirder. At the same moment, I was flicking through Facebook,
Uh-huh.
and I came an advertisement for a school in London, a coaching school in London. Just so strange. And I thought, I'm going to contact them and see what happens. And I contacted them. I was in Germany at the time,
Uh-huh.
and they were running an intense course in Frankfurt the next month.
Mhm.
And that's literally what I did. I just thought, this is a sign. I have to just go for it. Like, I've got a really good gut feeling about this. I'm going to go for it. So I then retrained to be a coach.
Oh wow. So I mean, and for how long did you live in Germany? I mean, you already knew the language and you were familiar with it?
Well, now the course was in English. I have to tell you, I think personally that learning a language in your 30s, you're never going to grasp the fluency. And it's something that I constantly keep going on with my children, because I think it's so important that they learn languages now rather than doing what I did and do it in your 30s. So I did the course in English. Yeah, and sorry, what was the question again? You were
Um, like if you feel comfortable with the language and everything.
Yeah, so I mean, I was comfortable with the language. I could do basic day-to-day things, but I wasn't. My whole idea by coaching was I had to coach women in English, because I don't know if you speak another language, but even when you are fluent, your personality nearly changes between languages.
Yes.
And for me, my mother tongue, which is English, is the one that I'm better at coaching in.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. And let me ask you this. So there's different types of coaching. I know. You say you went to an online class, or I mean, it was a class for a month.
Yeah,
So.
no, it was an intense weekend. So I actually went
Oh.
to Frankfurt. It was over 3 days, and then we met a few months later, and it was over 2 days. But there was homeworks and things in between, and mentoring. I think the course altogether was about 6 months from me beginning and qualifying.
And was it a specific type of coach, or it was just like the basics of being a coach?
It was specifically transformational coaching.
Oh, okay, okay, okay. So for the audience that have, I mean, to me, honestly, I was kind of new. I mean, the word is self-explicit, like transformational coach. But can you explain a little bit more about what is a transformational coach?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's a term that's more used in Europe.
Okay.
So when I first came to America, I would say to people, I'm a transformational coach, and I could just see them going, "What? Is that basketball coach? Is So I'm only 5'1", so I'm definitely not a basketball coach. So yeah, it was it for me. It here the biggest term would be life coach. I would say I'm a life coach, but I go deeper. So I not only map out your goals and the path to get there, but we discuss how what is stopping you. So why have you not done this to begin with? So it's like if you have an action that you're supposed to be doing and it's not going to plan, I'm going to start challenging you and your behaviors and asking why are you, number one, not doing it, number two, avoiding it, why are you procrastinating on it. So it's getting deeper. It's finding out what those triggers are that are stopping you from doing things. That can be limiting beliefs, it can be confidence, like you literally don't believe in yourself, but you haven't actually worked that out yet. So it's taken that time with somebody to dig deeper into who you are and what actually motivates you and what keeps you going.
I think that's really interesting because there's a lot of people who need that.
I
I mean,
think we
because
all do.
yeah, yeah, and I know it's the term is more known like imposter syndrome. So, do you ever go through that phase yourself? Before becoming a coach?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to be honest, I think I have been through imposter syndrome my entire life. If I even think back to when I was a singer, I started singing when I was 16. And I remember being brand new on stage. I mean, I'd done, school things, but I'd never done like actually been on stage performing to an audience that are paying to see you.
Hmm.
And I worked with a lot of older singers, and I remember feeling I shouldn't be here. I haven't done this before. Why are they paying me? Totally feeling like that. Even if I think of my medical marketing career, I went from a very small time company in Northern Ireland, and I got this job with one of the leading global diagnostic companies in the world in London, which is like one of the biggest cities, most well-known cities in the world. And I went from this small time Belfast company to this massive company. And I did keep thinking they're going to look at my resume at some stage and realize I didn't have the experience. You're always going to feel that. And I think new mums feel it. They feel it when they're handed this brand new baby and they go, nobody's told me what to do with this. So I think we all feel it. My opinion on imposter syndrome is it's completely normal. Um, and I think that's a really important point. I think people feel, you feel like a fraud. And I think that's completely, completely normal. Everyone experiences it. I don't think I've ever met anyone who hasn't experienced it. So I think to accept it as being normal is the first step in getting over it.
Hmm.
I also personally see it as a privilege. I don't know. I don't know if that's completely out there,
What
but
do you mean by privilege?
I think if you are having imposter syndrome, you are getting yourself out of your comfort zone, you're taking risks, you are putting yourself out there to be vulnerable. And that to me is a privilege. That to me is saying you're doing something to improve your life. You are growing as a person. And I think for me, that's what imposter syndrome is too. When you see it and you feel it and you go, actually, number one, this is normal. And number two, this is a good thing. This is a privilege to feel this. I have done something completely out of my comfort zone. So I don't know. I see it as a positive thing. And I think it's sometimes about feeling that and just going with it.
I never thought of it like that. I mean, it does make sense now that you say it. I've gone through imposter syndrome a lot, and yeah, it means that you're getting out of your comfort zone. So I guess there's a positive side to the imposter syndrome.
There's a positive side to
To
everything.
everything, right?
Yeah, but I
Wow.
mean,
Mhm.
personally, I work a lot with imposter syndrome. I mean, I work with mums, and I think every single mum that I have worked with has imposter syndrome, whether it's being a mum or whether they have had a maternity leave that might be extended. They go back to work and they feel I don't know what I'm doing anymore. I haven't done this in 6 months. And they feel that they're imposters back in their positions. So it is very common. And I'll tell you, actually, one of my biggest tips, it's an activity. Personally, I think to get over imposter syndrome,
Mm-hmm.
you do need to question what's in the background, what is causing it, and find ways of getting through it. But one of the great activities that I do with my coaches, and it's great, it does work, is that I get them to write out a resume. Now, I don't want them to sit down for 20 minutes and just write a resume the way that you do for work.
Mm-hmm.
I say take a week, write down all of your achievements. Now, I get them to pick the timeline. It can be over your lifetime, it could be over the last 5 years. It really depends on where that imposter syndrome's coming from.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say write down all your achievements. It doesn't have to be related to work. It doesn't have to be a work resume. In fact, I would say to avoid that.
So it's more
But
like a live resume type of.
yeah, like a life resume. So you can talk about having a great relationship with your partner. You can talk about how you help someone through a really hard time. You can talk about your achievements in work also, or your achievements as a parent.
Mm-hmm.
And I get them to write that out. So even if you're, say, on your way to work and you can think about one, type it into your phone and add it to your resume later. Take a week to think about it. Then put it away. Once you've finished it, put it away for, say, another week, and then come back to it. And what I suggest you do is you read it,
Mm-hmm.
not as yourself. So you read it as somebody else reading a resume.
Like someone will kind of hire you type of thing.
Exactly. Just someone who wants to know a bit about you and is a bit curious.
Right.
And you read it with new eyes. And it is such a confidence builder, because I think when you take a week rather than sit down and write it, it actually gives you time to breathe, to think. And you don't realize how much you're writing down because it comes to you gradually. And then when you see it all put together and you read it as somebody else, it's such a confidence builder. It's such a look at what this person has done. And then to realize that that's yourself, it really does start to build up that confidence again.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is I mean, I think I've trying to work through that process because I was talking to my wife. I was like, well, sometimes we're looking towards the future, but we totally forget what we have done in the past.
Yeah.
And we're always like, oh, it's my goal is so far away. I feel I'm not capable of reaching that. But
Yeah.
we forget, like, we've done this, we've done that. So, I mean, it's totally doable. So, like you said, sometimes we need to go look into the past and see what we've done.
It's just connecting with who you are, who your values are, what your identity is. And I think for the processes that I'm talking about with mums, there is such a cutoff. So it's like, here's my career and
Hmm.
everything that I've done. And then all of a sudden you become a mum, and it's like your career and everything you've done before doesn't matter. It does matter. All of those skills that you've picked up will help you to be a good and successful mum, in the same way that when you go back into the workforce, all those skills that you've picked up as a mum are going to be so valuable in the workforce. And it's about creating a line between those rather than cut off, because that's what's killing our confidence.
Hmm.
And that's what creates imposter syndrome too.
Okay. So, I mean, I'm listening to really, really good things here. And if I were a woman, I mean, I would love to work with you. So
Oh, thank you.
I'm kind of like trying to understand. So you help women make the transition when they have babies and all of that, but also like into a career, or is it more like personal or?
I mean, what I say is I work with busy mums. So that can mean an umbrella of things. But I'll tell you the three types of women that I work with. I work with mums who run their own businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that can be coming back into their business after maternity, but it can also be that perhaps your business has just taken a growth and you just need a bit of help with your mindset, or that your business has become stuck and you need to work out what's going on behind that. So I always think of it as like organizing your thoughts and also just having time to think, because mums don't have time to think. When they are doing anything, they're thinking about, oh, I need to pick up such and such at this time. I need to get a new soccer ball. I need to get a new soccer kit. And we have lists and lists and lists. So it's 1 hour, however often that you need that. and you're just taking time to organize what's going on in your life. And I think it's so valuable. So I work with those business mums. I also work with mums in corporations. So again, that can be a mum who's just had a promotion and is having imposter syndrome, because that always comes with a promotion. And mums who've relocated, because obviously I've relocated twice with
Twice
children.
already. Yeah.
Yeah, well, three times technically, but only twice with children because I'm now in America.
Right.
But yeah, it's and that, oh my goodness, that's a life-changing process, which I hope I never have to go through again. I'm still traumatized by the one 18 months ago. So yeah, it's about just helping them to settle into their new country. We talk about how to create networks, and even the small things. Again, the list of things that we have to do, but the small things like, how do I get a doctor in my new country? How do I get a dentist? Does my health insurance work? So it's all of these things put together. Even getting a hairdresser, that is one of the most difficult things any woman will discover over her lifetime.
So
Never
you
mind moving country.
you kind of help reduce that culture shock, right?
Exactly. Well, it's more, I mean, yeah, it's about reducing the culture shock and just settling into your new life, definitely.
Wow, that's awesome. I mean, I didn't know that it was possible that someone did that for a living. Well, that's cool. I'm sure a lot of people need that. So let me ask you on a little bit more on the business side of things, because I do a lot of marketing and stuff.
Yeah.
So when you became a coach, after you finished your course and all that, was it difficult to get your first client? How did social media help with that?
Well, actually, I didn't use, well, I'm saying I didn't use social media. I did use social media. I put out, before I finished my course, we were asked to get a client to practice on,
Oh.
completely pro bono. And
Mm-hmm.
I thought, okay, so I just put up a notice on Facebook saying I'm looking for a client. I had 6 people contact me, and I just thought, I'm going to take all 6 because this is going to be the best way to practice.
Uh-huh.
So that's what I did. And it was word of mouth from there that ended, and I did them all pro bono, but it was word of mouth from there that ended up building my network and building up, the people that I would ultimately coach.
And so when
So
did you started? Well, I mean, after Facebook, when did you start like, okay, I'm gonna make it official. I'll have a Instagram and all that.
I did it as I went along. So I think once I had started getting the clients, I was still in the process of qualifying. And then I only had a Facebook page at that stage. And then I moved into Instagram. And Instagram was great because it's coaching mums. I was able to like share a lot about how to keep your kids entertained. We're going to the beach today. It was things like that just it was a story about what I was doing too. So it wasn't only just tips for life, it was good tips for how to keep your kids entertained, or whatever it is, motherhood basically. um but I have to say I didn't get much into social media until I moved to America. And I moved to America in August 2019. Now, again, it was based on my husband's promotion. So I had no visa to work.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to apply for a work permit when I arrived here, and that normally takes 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
But then, of course, we had a global pandemic in the middle of it. So it took 10 months, and I didn't actually get my work permit until June 2020, which was in the middle of a global pandemic. I had no network.
Oh.
I had none of the traditional ways that I marketed. So for me, it was like, I'm going to have to learn social media. I'm going to have to get stuck in here and work out how this is going to work for me. So it was, yeah, it was starting from scratch. It really felt like it. It was, posting, doing videos. I had to get comfortable with doing videos, which
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't comfortable with. I have a very strong Irish accent, and I kept thinking, how is anyone going to understand me? I was using every excuse not to do it, every excuse. I started getting into LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it was that one-to-one marketing. It was reaching out to people and saying, hello, this is me. How can I help you? When they haven't asked. And it felt very out of my comfort zone. But that was how I had to do it. So it has been a massive learning experience. It has been a big challenge. But obviously the rewards speak for itself.
I was gonna ask that. I mean, do you feel a difference now that you started social media? Was it the growth was it bigger?
At the beginning, it was really slow,
Right,
like
right.
really slow. I mean, I felt I worked all summer, and I got nowhere. And then I started doing talking events from last September. I just came across a coaching and speaking group on Facebook and joined it. And
Oh,
then people would post opportunities, and I was just putting myself forward for everything. And I would say 80% of people were not getting back to me at all. Nobody wanted to speak to me, but it didn't stop me. So eventually, once I started doing one or two, then it started flowing. Then I was getting asked to do webinars, and more so recently I've been asked to do podcasts. um, and it's great. It gets you a lot more comfortable in front of the camera. It's using other people's audiences, which I think is really important too. So yeah, that is basically how I've done it, is speaking, posting videos. I find I get a lot of engagement on videos, but also I have to engage my audience. I have to start those conversations.
right. And what advice will you recommend on engaging? Because I think that's the hardest part on social media. Because I mean, you can talk and talk and talk and talk, but actually engaging your audience. What advice will you give?
Well, firstly, I never post anything unless I ask a question. So whatever I'm talking about, even if it's, a video, if somebody can't see the video, I ask a question in the text.
Mm-hmm,
Um, you need to judge it based on that. So like one of the big things for me is I do inspirational quotes.
mm-hmm,
Um, and I'll get a lot of engagement on things like that. So then I'll continue doing things like that. I ensure that I'm doing these inspirational quotes and writing background behind it.
mm-hmm,
If I'm doing something and I'm not getting engagement, I stop. So it is that trial and error, and
mm-hmm,
make sure you speak back. So if someone takes the time to comment on your post, you
mm-hmm.
have to thank them for commenting. And if they write something you can add again to it. Another thing that I got into, which really helped me, was the likes of Tony Robbins, Gary V, Mel Robbins,
Oh
Kathy
yeah.
Heller as well. I comment on their posts and I get people commenting back to me. So it's about, again, borrowing audiences. It's about getting yourself out there and saying, More's my type of people. Who are they going to be following?
Mm-hmm.
And then you make yourself known in those groups as well.
That's an awesome advice. Awesome. I mean, in real estate, there's a lot of there's a saying called OPM, using other people's money, but I guess
Okay.
in social media, I guess it's using other people's audience. So
OPA.
OPA, we can coin it like that. OPA. So, what advice will you give to yourself, like you're 10 years ago? What advice would you give yourself?
Oh my goodness, it's hard to even think who I was. I mean, 10 years ago, I had just moved to England. That was my first time ever leaving Ireland. But to be perfectly honest, even going back 20 years, I think I just really wished I believed in myself more. I think that has been a very long process for me. The whole way through my 20s. And I think even for the most confident of us, especially women, there is so much that we're told, whether it's directly or through cues or images from society,
Mm-hmm,
that we're supposed to be a certain way.
mm-hmm,
Um, I never fitted into that box. And I think because there was a disconnect, it really killed my confidence. So for me, it would be, and I instill this in my children every day, you have to believe in who you are, and you have to go for the dreams that are your purpose,
mm-hmm.
not somebody else's dream. If I mean, I would love for one of my children to be like a civil rights solicitor or attorney, earning millions. But if they don't want to do that, I'm not going to press that upon them. And I think that's the important thing. It's about believing in who you are. It's been a very long process for me, and I also can see now with my old age that there's so many opportunities I didn't go for
Mm-hmm.
because I just didn't believe I could. And I think going back to me, I would just go, just do it all. Do
Just
all of
do
it. Say yes to everything.
it.
Take every opportunity. And do you know what? If you fall flat on your face, it's fine. It's totally fine. You're going to get up, dust yourself off, have a bit of embarrassment, and move on. So I think that, yeah, definitely about believing in yourself.
I think that I think that's the hardest part. The embarrassment. I think some people cannot don't know how to deal with it, and just knowing that it's just, people will forget about it. I mean, why worry about it? Just get yourself embarrassed and move on,
Feel the embarrassment. I always say this, feel those emotions. We're human. We have to feel them, experience them, and get on with it. Don't let it stop you. I think we're brought up in a society that mocks people who make mistakes,
Hmm.
that vilifies people who make mistakes. We are only human. And I know, listen, I think I'm a great mum, but even I make mistakes. There's days that I lose my temper and absolutely go crazy. It's normal. It's completely normal. And I just need to know that on those days, I have to step back and I have to look at that behavior and go, that wasn't great, and move on from it. I can't
Right.
kill myself over that and get into a circle of self hatred. All that's going to do is make me an angry person. I don't want to be that person for my children.
Yeah. Well, those are great advice from you. So for the audience that is listening to this podcast, is there anything else that you would like to share, with the audience?
Well, I mean, as I said, my big thing is about connecting, especially this last, I guess, 10 months now going on. So please connect with me. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook. My company itself is called Strong Path Coaching. And you can find my website at strongpathcoaching.com. So feel free to reach out, ask questions, engage with me. I'm always here to have a conversation. I'm
Awesome.
Irish, so I like to talk.
Yeah, and about the accent thing, I think I can understand perfectly. So I think I got worse as accent than you. So,
You do not. You do not. You sound completely American. It
oh, thank
doesn't.
you.
No, it's a nice accent.
All right, so I'm gonna be posting your social handles here, but for the ones that are listening, you know where to reach her. I did met her through Instagram, and that's a great platform where you can. I like what you said on the storytelling part. So if you need advice on children and things like that, you know where to find. And your name again is Grain, right?
Grania, Grania.
Grain. Oh,
Yeah.
I need to learn that. Grain. Well, thank you very much, Grania, for your time, your great advice. I was happy, to hear someone like you share all your knowledge, and that you're helping women transition into, have more confidence on them. So that's awesome. So thank you for being part of this episode today.
Thanks very much.
All right, talk to you later.